Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. So everyone can see the slides.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So let us start our class today. And before starting our class, let us look into what we have studied in the last class, and then we would like to have a discussion on what you have understood and what not in today's class. So in the last class, we were talking of, for example, the what is the coronavirus, what is the different parts and like the components of the virus and their functionality. Okay, so we talked about like in the coronavirus, you have, for example, the RNA as the genetic material, and generally, for example, for the detection of this virus. So you know that we are using the swab-based test, the RT-PCR, and so on. So for testing and confirmation that a particular person has been infected with this coronavirus or not, so what we do, we take out the swab, we insert the swab in our, for example, the nose or the throat, and we take out the fluid, that fluid which contains, for example, this virus, and then we extract the virus. So that we have a protocols and steps through which we can extract the virus, take out, separate the virus from the, so for example, from the salivary fluids. And then what we do is we talked about the different components of this coronavirus, like it has a glycoprotein structure, the membrane proteins, the nuclear protein, and so on, the spike proteins, and so on. So what we do is we break apart these spike proteins and the membrane proteins, whatever is there, and then what we do is we extract this inert genetic material, the RNA. Okay, and then that RNA is being amplified, and RNA is converted into the DNA. So we use the technique called the RT-PCR. So PCR is a technique which is used to amplify the DNA. Okay, and that helps in the detection of or the quantification of, for example, this type of DNA type materials. And in the case we have the RNA, and that's why we use an enzyme called the reverse transcriptase, which converts this RNA to the DNA, and then that DNA is actually amplified using the PCR machine. So we will look into the process and techniques on the PCR and all those things possibly in the unit, in the next unit. But just to understand this, just to understand that part, that which part of this virus we are actually detecting using the RT-PCR, I would like to confirm you that this is the genomic RNA which is being extracted from the virus samples, and these are being actually detected when we are having, for example, the swab tests. So you looked into the details of the structure, then we looked into that how this virus is actually binding, like the spike protein, what are the different components that are there, and how it is binding, for example, to the cells. So we have some type of a receptor, or some sort of a receptors are there. So in generally in cells, each and every cells actually communicate with each other. Okay, so in our body we have millions of cells, right, and different types of cells. We have blood cells, we have cells on the skin, we have the cells on the eyes through which we see, and cells are everywhere. It is in the heart, it's in lungs, and each and every cells is doing their own function. Okay, so that function is being defined by the type of the genetic material or DNA material that is here, what are the types of the proteins that is being produced, and as well as the cell signaling. So each and every cell actually communicate with each other through by the passage of some signals. Okay, and these signals are passed through this type of proteins and the receptors that are present on the surface of these cell membranes. So in this case, what is happening? We talked that this RBD, that is receptor binding domain of this virus, is actually attaching to the ACE2 receptor, okay, which are present generally on the cells of the lungs. And then we have seen what is the mechanism by which the virus is infecting. Okay, so like first step it does is it transfers its genetic material. This genetic material is converted into the proteins, and further the RNA that or the DNA, whatever is there, is multiplied in number, and this protein and this genetic material that is being amplified within the cells within the host cell into which the virus is infecting, they combine and assemble together to form the complete structure of the virus. Okay, and that are released. So virus, as we have seen from the in the previous class, it consists of a very simple unit. It is not a, complex multicellular organisms which have like different organelles, and it's a very complex. But in the virus are very simple. Okay, it has a protein coat and it has a genetic material, and the protein coat actually protects the genetic material from damage getting it damaged. Okay, and these type of particles are very easy, are very small particles, and they tend to float in the air, are suspended in the water, and so on. So this very simple thing actually is can be easily replicated when it's infecting the host cells. Okay, and then we looked into what is the mechanism of the replication of this SARS virus, how it is attaching, means it is attaching in the lungs of cells present in the lungs, and how it is replicating. How, for example, replicating means how this increasing the its numbers. Like if you one virus is infecting, how, for example, three or multiple viruses are being produced, and these viruses in turn actually affects the neighboring cells in the lungs. And then we looked into the medical part where we means the from here we can see that the virus are infecting. So this is a mechanism how this virus infects the cell, but what is that effect that it causes? So we have seen that that in the alveoli sacs that are present in our lungs, there is a formation of or loss of the surfactant that is present. The type 2 cells, there are two types of cells, type 1 and type 2, and in the type 2 cells there is a loss of the surfactant and the formation of scars and tissues. Because of that, the transfer of this type of oxygen, and so there is a formation of a scar tissue. So it's like a wall is being formed that between the blood cells and the alveoli, which contains the oxygen or oxygen rich environment. Okay, and because of that, the oxygen cannot pass from the inside ear sacs to the outside the blood vessels, and that is why we have the respiratory problems during when we have the virus infecting us. Then we look into the what is a mutation, what are the different types of mutation, and how those mutation is actually in the case of the coronavirus, it's producing the different variants, and like alpha, beta, gamma, delta, some of the variant, and among these delta is a double mutant. That means it contains the genetic mutations coming from the beta as well as the gamma strains. And we talked about that these type of terminologies that are generally used to represent the mutation. So nothing but if you see for example, the protein code or the genetic material, so there is some change in the amino acid sequence or the positions that makes it to be that very small change in the amino acid sequence actually changes the properties of the virus, making it more deadlier, making it more easily transmissible, or making it in such a way that it cannot that our body cannot detect it as a foreign body or means or a foreign agent, and because of that our body fails to produce the antibodies. Okay, and that is required. So antibodies are something, it's a cocktail of proteins, you can say, which helps in neutralizing or killing of this virus. So we'll look into that in details later on in the unit 4, like what is an antibodies, how these antibodies are produced in our bodies, and how the vaccines, for example, that we are developing can is means how we will develop the vaccines, what is the techniques for that, and how the vaccines in our body, once it is injected, it's generating the antibodies. Okay, so this is what we studied, and then we studied the different drugs. So like we talked about 3 to 4 drugs, like we talked about remdesivir, which is the, so remdesivir is used, probably everyone has heard by now. Okay, and we found, so remdesivir is used for the prevention of this RNA replication. So we have seen at different stages when the virus infects the cell. So remdesivir actually prevents the replication of the RNA, because the replication of the RNA requires an enzyme called RNA polymerase, and remdesivir actually inhibits this type of RNA polymerase. And for example, this step, the replication or the multiplication of a single strand RNA into multiple units of this RNA is actually inhibited by the remdesivir. Then we have the hydroxychloroquine or chloroquine as such. So that actually prevents the binding of the receptors that are present on the surface of the virus to the, for example, ACE2 receptor that is present in the lungs of our cell, and so on. There are other types of the drugs. So, coming to the summary of what we have learned. So I would like to, in this last slide, from this last slide, I guess by now everyone can tell what is a virus. Okay, and what are the types of the virus? So we talked about that the virus can be classified depending upon the genetic material it has. So it can be, uh, for example, RNA or DNA type. Okay, or it can be classified depending upon the type of the protein code it has. Okay, and then we have the studied the what is the mechanism of the virus propagation in the cells. And if we are coming to specific to this coronavirus, so we studied what is the structure of the coronavirus. Okay, and we studied how it attacks the human bodies and how it binds to the cells, and then it gets replicate within our body. So we also studied what is the central dogma and what is a mutation and the different types of the mutations that are there, and how these mutations, for example, is leading to the formation of different variants of the coronavirus as such. And then we saw that what are different drugs that are there and their mode of actions that is required for that, means how they are actually helping or inhibiting the virus infection as well as the propagation within the cells, or the replication or the multiplication of the viruses. Okay, so we have seen this in thing in the detail. So let us have a discussion on, like, in today's class. So can anyone tell in briefly what is the structure of the coronavirus? Anyone? Rituraj? So I would like to understand that if you are getting the points or not. So that is very much important. Rituraj, are you there? Anyone can tell what is the basic structure of the virus? Ravi, everyone can hear, right? Am I audible or not?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So anyone can tell what is the structure of, so everyone have to interact, otherwise it is very difficult to means continue like this, because if I don't understand you are getting or not, then there is no meaning of for example teaching a interesting topic. Okay, so it has to be there that you are getting those points or not, and most of the students are, for example, in the non-biological background, so it is very much important to understand for me that you are getting the things or not. Okay, so Anand, Kesab, Animesh, anyone? Kirtan?
It's a long polymer tightly packed central particle.
Animesh, tell.
It's a
Yeah.
long RNA polymer.
Long RNA polymer is?
It's a tightly packed RNA polymer.
So if you were asked like what is the structure of a coronavirus, so the RNA is one of the component, but what are the other components? Like why it is
Sir,
called the corona? Hmm.
spherical protein uh, spikes protruding on the surface.
Okay, so you have
Crown-like
the,
structure.
yes. So you have the spherical this RNA protein RNA, and you have the spike proteins, and it looks like a crown-like structure that altogether makes it a the name the called the coronavirus. Okay, and can anyone tell the second part, like how the coronavirus attacks the human body, and the like, for example, what are the receptors that are there? Can anyone tell on that?
They have spike glycoproteins which attach to the ACE2 receptors on cells that are present in our lungs.
Okay, okay, and anyone, what is the central dogma? Anyone else? Harshita Jain. Then we have Harshit. Yes, Harshita, can you tell what is the central dogma? Hello. Shloka Negi,
Yes,
can you tell what is the central dogma? Yes.
central dogma is basically the conversion of DNA to RNA and then RNA to protein. So it consists of transcription, translation, and also replication.
Okay. Good. And suppose to the next question, what is a mutation and the different types of the mutation? Anyone? We have seen there are 5 types of mutation, and what is a mutation? So anyone else? Saswat? Saswat Khare? Satish Kumar?
So change in the basic structure,
Change in the
genetic
DNA
structure.
sequence.
okay. So when is the changes occurring?
During cell division or in contact with certain mutagens.
Okay. Okay. Good. And anyone else types of mutation? We have seen there are types of mutations, right?
Sir, it's
Hmm.
insertion, deletion, duplication, and inversion. Also translocation.
Okay. Good. So yeah. So we need to have this type of discussions during the class. So if you can see that course is designed in such a way, like if you give attention in the class, okay, and after every class we will have a short discussion on what we are understanding from the previous class, okay, and the course is designed in such a way that if you give attention within the class and if you have the basic, you can able to answer, for example, these basic questions, okay, that would be enough for you for your mid semester, end semester, and the quizzes, okay. So you don't need to have study separately. So please give attention in the class and have a discussion on these topics, okay. So that would be enough, and the course is also designed in that way. So please follow that, okay. And so let us now go to the new topic. So in this, we have studied about the viruses, about the different microorganisms, and we just extend it a bit more on the virus because of the recent the coronavirus being the hot topic. And then we will, in the unit 4, we'll go to the on the more detail on the bioprocess developments that are required, for example, in the case of the vaccines. But before that, there are many things we would like to understand, the very basic and fundamental things, like what is the fermentations, what are the, how the microbes are grown, for example, okay. And so we will see that what is in the next topic we'll start is what is the primary and the secondary metabolites, and what are the different bioproducts and their classifications. Okay, so the topic of this is basically on the area is actually called industrial biochemical engineering. Okay, and this industrial biochemical engineering is a combination of two domains or two areas, which is the industrial microbiology and the industrial biotechnology. So we'll look into that. What is the industrial microbiology and what is the industrial biotechnology, and we will look into what is the general flow diagram for any bioprocesses, like what are the very basic and fundamental steps that are there, and how any bioprocess, for example, can be classified into like upstream or downstream processes. So let us understand what is an industrial microbiology. So industrial microbiology means it uses the different microorganisms such as naturally occurring organisms, laboratory selected mutants, or the genetically modified organisms. So if you see the microorganisms, they can be classified into 3 types. Basically, if it is naturally occurring, okay, so generally there are some microbes which are present in the nature, okay. So and we identify those microbes, and we selectively grow these microbes under the controlled conditions. So if you see any microbes that are present in the environment, the conditions like the temperature, humidity, and the pH of the soil or whatever. It's a variation. There is a variation of that. But what we try to do is we isolate these organisms from that site, and then we try to grow them under a controlled condition. Okay, like and the control condition is where it is some reactor or a fermenter. Okay, and that leads to the high or improved yield of, for example, the particular or the desired product we would like to have. Then we have laboratory selected mutants. So some of the microorganisms are actually, we can make some mutants, and we can in the laboratory select those particular mutant of the microorganism, or we can genetically engineer the microorganism. So for example, I have already talked to you about, or we have taken an example of the genetic engineering E. coli. So E. coli is one of the bacteria which can grow very fast compared to the other microbes or the bacteria as such. Okay, so what people do is genetically engineer, for example, the E. coli. Okay, so when suppose the E. coli is a particular bacteria which can multiply, but they are not, for example, known to produce any value-added biochemicals. They can just multiply very fast. Okay, but somehow if we can suppose genetically engineer an E. coli, the DNA of an E. coli, the genetic material is there with a particular sequence, a target sequence, which is there for the production of a biochemical, suppose an ethanol. Okay, if we can modify the that genetic material with that particular targeted genes which are responsible for the production of the ethanol, then we can create an genetically engineered E. coli, which will multiply very fast, and as it multiplies very fast, it is also going to produce a very high volume or the higher concentration of the ethanol, which is normally not found in the, for example, the natural microorganisms. The natural microorganisms maybe, though they have that targeted gene for the production of an biochemical such as ethanol, but their growth or the production rate is maybe very slow. Okay, and we don't get, for example, the desired amount of that ethanol or the any particular biochemical assay. So what we do, we take that gene from that bacteria or microorganism, and then we insert into into an vector. So we will look into what is a vector, and then we genetically modify this particular E. coli or any microorganism as such, and then we grow it under a controlled condition in the labs. And through this, we can actually produce a large variety of industrial products. A large variety of industrial products can be produced depending upon the our interest. Okay, so depending on the human interest, till now there has been lots of such type of chemicals are being produced using the suppose a genetically modified process or technique. So we'll look into those examples. What are the very specific highly highly high volume and high quantity, or the highly costly processes which cannot be done, for example, with the chemical approaches, are actually done with these biochemical routes or the biological routes. Then next part, this comes called industrial biotechnology. So what is the industrial biotechnology? It is a set of practices or units that uses the living cells or the components of the cells like enzymes to generate the products of the industrial importance. Okay, so you can see that in industrial biology is biotechnology is a set of practices or the units. So if I think most of you in the branches of the chemical engineering, pharmacy, mechanical engineering, they have studied different unit operations. So when you have studied subjects like heat transfer, mass transfer, you have studied different unit operations that are there. Okay, starting from the filtration, crystallizations, and so on. There's several unit operations that are there. So in this particular part or the branch of this engineering in the industrial biotechnology, what we do, we select this set of different unit operations that are required for the growth of these the cells or the microorganism as such. Okay, and after they are grown in a particular, for example, in a particular conditions, once that microorganism has produced that biochemical as such, then what is it is followed by? It is followed by a purification processes. Okay, so that you get the high purity and high yield of that particular targeted biochemical. Okay, so in the case of this industrial biotechnology, there is a two-step process. First step is to produce the, for example, the adequate quantity of the cells, okay, and then grow these cells in such a way that it is producing the targeted biochemical. And then once the biochemical is produced, okay, it has to be purified or extracted to get that desired yield and desired purity of that biochemical. So this, you can see from this, there are two components. And so first component is called upstream, and the second component that we discussed is called the downstream process. So what is in the upstream process? The upstream process consists of the components like the formulation and the hydration and the cell culture. So initially, for example, if you have selected a particular microorganism, okay, so that my quantity or the amount of the microorganism may be like 1 cells, 2 cells, or 3 cells, or maybe suppose a 10 cells, bunch of 10 cells. But this bunch of 10 bacteria or 10 yeast or the 10 algae, for example, 10 microorganisms are not enough for production of any biochemical if it is in the industrial scale or even in the lab scale. So what you need to do, so you need to actually increase the concentration of that cell. Once the concentration of the cells are higher, then only that production of that biochemical will take place. And for that, what you need to do is first you need to prepare the media. So what is a media? So media is the consist of the components or the growth components or the food source or the carbon source, okay, that is required, that is suitable for the growth of the microorganism. Okay, and what does it contains? Like we require food for our for our daily activities. Similarly, microorganisms require the food. And what is the major food components that are there? So that are the carbon source. So there has to be like for example the glucose and the sucrose. So these are the molecules which provides the carbon source to the microbes, which you are going to grow in the fermenter. So then along with the carbon source, they require the nitrogen source. Okay, and the nitrogen source comes from the amino acids or the some of the peptides or some of the extracts that are there that are being added to the fermentation media. And then we require some of the like the oxygen, oxygen source are required. Maybe it is an aerobic process. If it is an aerobic process, it requires oxygen. Then there are some of the micro elements. So these are the carbon, nitrogen, oxygen are the major elements that are generally required by the microorganism. And we will see that what is the classification of macro and the micro elements. And then there are some other elements. Maybe suppose some bacteria required sulfur or any other vitamins and any other chemicals in very small quantities they are required, and that actually helps in somehow the biosynthesis pathways of the bacteria. And in that way it helps in the growth of these microorganisms. Okay, so first of all, what we need to select, we need to select a particular appropriate media. Okay, adequate media for the growth of the microorganisms. Now if you see the second step shows the filtration. So one of the very important thing in any biochemical engineering process is that very aseptic conditions, means whenever the microbes will only grow when it is in a very aseptic condition. So what is an aseptic condition? That means there should not be any other contamination. So contamination of other microorganisms or contamination of other types of materials that are there, that should not be present whenever you are carrying out any bioprocess or any fermentation step. Okay, so whatever the media, optimized media you have prepared for the growth that is adequate for the growth of a microorganisms, that needs to be filtered or that needs to be sterilized. Okay, so sterilization can be done in different techniques. So filtration is one of them. Then what another techniques we use is the autoclaving. So autoclaving means we are heating up, for example, the media, whatever media we have prepared, to make sure that there is no microorganisms present within that growth media. We do the autoclaving. That means we heat that media in a very closed chamber at a temperature of 121 degrees Celsius and the pressure of 15 psi. Okay, so that actually kills whatever microorganism or the contaminations that are present, and then we filter it to separate the dead microorganisms or or its components or parts. Okay, and then what we get is the very pure form of the media. Okay, and then we transfer this pure form of the media to the cell culture bioreactor. So as I told you, in the industries, there are several steps that are The first step is the upstream and the second step is the downstream. Okay, so as I told you, like in the industry, when you are producing a particular biochemical, you need a very high concentration of the cells, and how to get that high concentration of the cells. So in this case, what is done, a pre-culture is made. So what is a pre-culture? So what is this cell culture is done? So what is done? We have, for example, maybe you can imagine that you have 10 cells of a bacteria. Okay, so that 10 cells of the bacteria are inoculated into the bioreactor. So what is an inoculation? Inoculation is a process in which or a process by which we can increase the concentration of the microorganisms or the bacteria in a culture. So there are different techniques of doing that. We have serial dilution. We will look into those things. What is the serial dilution and all those things by which we can increase, for example, the concentration of the microorganism, and also we can select the targeted microorganism also. So in this case, what we do in the cell culture, we increase the concentration of the cells. Okay, so that we have now billions of cells that are there, and we once that growth media contains the very high concentration of the cells, then actually it is being used for the production of our targeted biochemical. Okay, so what is this? If you see the pink part, this is the harvest collection, or it is the main fermenter into which that the production of the desired biochemical is taking place. Okay, and so here, from here, what is done from this, a particular amount of the culture of the cell culture is actually transferred to the main fermenter, which contains the production media. So generally the two medias are different. The first media is called the growth media, and that growth media is required for the growth or the multiplication or the increase in the concentration of the cells. Okay, and next next in this second stage we have the production media. In the case of the production media, what is happening? A particular desired biochemical is being produced within the fermenter. So once this fermentation, so if you see this, all the steps that is being done, like starting from the media preparation, okay, to the autoclaving and the filtrations, and then to increase the concentration of the cells, all these steps are called an upstream process. Okay. Okay, and then we have the fermentation process in which, for example, the desired biochemical is being produced. But once this desired biochemical is produced, then what is happening in the fermenter? Your particular biochemical is produced. Either it can be two types. Either that particular targeted biochemical is within the inside of the cells, or it is coming out from the cells of that or the microorganism. And if it is coming out from the microorganism, it will be mixed with the production media, and this production media will contain suppose the initial carbon source of the glucose that is present. Okay, it will contain the media components, it will contain your product, and it will contain your cells which are growing. So you can see there are, and also along with that it can contain some other byproducts that are also being produced. So you can see it is a mixture or a complex mixture of different components that are there. So to get your product, we need to carry out some steps and the processes to separate out our product from this type of mixtures. Okay, so how do we do that? So there are several unit operations. So as I talked about the filtration, centrifugation, sonications, then we have, for example, crystallization of any particular targeted chemical can be done, and like this, so many things are there. So many unit operations are there. So what is the basic unit operation is like the separation. So first what we generally do is the separate the cells from other dissolved chemicals. So generally cells are like a semi-solids. Okay, so if you see the bacterial culture, it contains the suspended microorganisms, and that can be separated very easily by, for example, the filtration step. Okay, and then you have the dissolved liquids components, and that can be separated by purification. Some, for example, the ethanol. If you want to separate the ethanol from the fermentation media, ethanol, you know, is a volatile component. So if you do the distillation process, distillation is like if you heat that liquid until the boiling point of the ethanol, so ethanol will vaporize, and you then condense the ethanol vapors, okay, by cooling it, and you can separate the ethanol from the media component. So depending upon the type of the biochemical you are producing, you have to develop your strategies of the purifications. Okay, and then once you have, for example, developed a particular biochemical and such, then you have to, like for example, you have separated the ethanol But once you have separated ethanol, it may contain some other impurities. So you want to do further some treatments or some unit operation processes to improve, for example, the purity of that ethanol that is being produced. Okay, so this is the final fill and finish. And suppose once you are produce a high purity ethanol, you can then store it, and like in the end, you need to have the product labeling. If it is a industrial process, you have the product labeling, filling, and so on. So whatever these steps that we talked about, that once your desired chemicals are produced, and then you are separating out, for example, this type of separating the bacteria with the product. So this all comes under the process called the downstream processing. Okay, so you can see in a bioprocess flow diagram, it is a very simplified flow diagram which consists of the two main steps, which is upstream and the downstream. So upstream consists of the steps which is required for the production of the particular targeted biochemicals. Then we have the fermentations approach where we produce the desired biochemical, and after that we need to separate out the biochemical through different downstream processing techniques. So so if you are asked like what is the definition for the upstream and the downstream process, so upstream process are those in which the biological materials are either obtained from an outside source or inoculated and grown in the culture under controlled condition to manufacture certain type of the product. So as I discussed you, so it consists of several steps, which is getting the particular desired biological material. So finding out the desired microorganisms that you are going to use it for the production of your particular product. And for that, you have to find that particular outside source from which you would like to get the microorganisms, because these also have a tremendous effect. So from which source you are getting a microorganism generally have a severe effect on that. And then you have to inoculate and grow in the culture. Okay, so grow means you are increasing the concentration of these type of microbes or desired microbes under a controlled condition, and then you go for the manufacture of the particular products through the fermentation technique. And in the case of the downstream processes, what we are doing is once the products are produced, or they are harvested, tested, purified, and packaged. So as I talked about that, you have to separate the products from these microorganisms, and then you have to purify to get a particular concentration, and at a range the purified products should be there, and then you have packaged for the product development. So if you see the what are the basic steps that are there, just to summarize, is that the upstream and downstream processes, they comprise of first the media preparation. Second, it consists of the inoculum preparation. That is, what is the inoculum? As I told you, that it contains the seed, the initial high concentrated solution, concentrated cell concentrated growth media components, and that are actually inoculated into the fermentation process. Okay, and then the fermentation is carried out for the production of a desired biochemical, and then there are several physiochemical separation processes are there for the purification of the product, and then we have the packaging and the effluent treatment. So what is the effluent treatment? So as I told you that once you have separated out your desired product from the cells, so your desired product is removed. Okay, but what about the other things? You have the cell debris. Okay, then you have the other byproducts and other components that are present. So you need to carry out an effluent treatment. Okay, so in the industrial processes, a very high volume of this type of effluents are produced. So you need to carry out a proper treatment of that effluent before you dispose it off. Okay, so disposal of that type of cells and the debris of those is also very important issue, because if you are just dumping it out into the water or into the soils, it is going to have a severe environmental effects, because these microbes may be lethal. It may be lethal to the humans. So you need to carry out a proper effluent treatment. Okay, you need to proper before disposing, you have to kill all the bacteria before you dispose of to any particular place, because these bacteria may go into the, for example, the water body streams and cause have a toxic effect on our system. So this is the 1 2 3 4 5 steps, and among these we are going to study the step number 1, the media preparations, 2 the fermentation process, the unit operations. Okay, and on the bit we will just slightly highlight on this effluent treatment. So we are not going to study on the, for example, the packaging part. We'll be mostly focused on these 3 topics in the in this unit 1 and the unit 2. So, as I talked about that, we have this downstream processing and the upstream processing. Okay, and mostly in the unit 1 and 2, we will mostly on the upstream processing, and then we will go a bit on the this downstream processing on the product purification, and we're going to see the different examples of that, of different biochemicals that are being produced. So let us, there are two things which are important, that is the medium preparation and the inoculum preparation. How we will grow the cells, and how we can select the appropriate media components that are suitable for the growth of that microorganism. So these two are the main components which we are going to look. Now, I know that most of you are also from the other backgrounds like the pharmacy, chemical engineering, chemistry, and so on, the ceramic and other departments. To look into the basic points. Okay, and how it affects the overall, suppose the cost. So when you develop any product, you have to see it the efficiency or the beneficiary of that particular product in terms of the cost, productivity. Okay, and nowadays it is very important to see how it is beneficial to the environment. Okay, is it causing, if you see the overall cycle of the production starting from the initial stage to the final stage, that product should not develop any byproducts which are toxic to the environments. Okay, so these things are very much important in the current scenario when you, for any industrial processes or anything that you are going to develop. So let us see what is the difference between chemical and the bioprocess. So in the case of the chemical process, we use the synthetic or the chemicals to convert the raw materials. Okay, so our raw materials are nothing but synthetic or the particular chemical that is being there. But in the case of bioprocess, the conversion of the raw material into final products are done by the biological organisms. Okay, so like in the, if you see for example any chemical reactions, we you have the reactant and the product. So in this case we have the reactants. Okay, and sometimes in the chemical processes or chemical reactions you need to add a catalyst, right? Okay, so you have the chemical reactants, which can be a synthetic chemical or sometimes maybe natural chemicals, and you need to add a catalyst or anything for the conversion of that particular reactant into the desired product. But in this case you need to provide a raw material. So raw materials are not are nothing but the growth media components that are there. Okay, and in this case the final products are actually produced by the biological organisms. So these biological organisms are acting like a catalyst, or they are directly acting on that raw materials, or they are supposed producing some enzymes. Okay, and that enzymes is converting that raw materials into the particular products. And how they are doing it, so they are doing it through a route which is already defined, called the biochemical pathway. Okay, in this we see, for example, in the organic chemistry, until I guess class 12, we have, everyone has gone through the mechanisms, right? How the conversion, or how the, for example, the catalyst is acting, what is the active site, means how they are for any chemical reaction. But in this case, if you want to understand the mechanism, you have to look into the biochemical pathway. Biochemical pathway of what? That of that particular biological organism, and how they are using particular any sort of a carbon source, and how they are converting that particular carbon source into a desired final products. Okay, so this is how the bioprocess works, and the chemical process is different. These are very basic fundamental thing on which it is going to vary. Generally, if you see the chemical processes, they need high temperature and the pressure. Okay, but in the case of the bioprocesses, high temperature and high pressure is not feasible, because at high temperature and high pressure, the microorganisms what you are going to use is going to die. Okay, so generally they operate at the ambient temperature and the pressure. So you can see, means if any chemical bioprocess is occurring at ambient temperature and pressure, then the overall cost is going to reduced, because the production of the temperature, maintaining high pressure requires a very complex design of the reactors, as well as it overall increases the overall cost of production. Then one of the advantage maybe with the chemical process is that it can be operated under unsterile condition. Like if there is even a contamination of any other things or components, even then you're going to get your desired product. Okay, so that means even unsterile conditions are okay, but in this case you need to have a particular degree of sterility depending on type of the bioprocess chemicals you are producing. Sometimes means you must have heard by now, I guess I will teach you also, there are different types of classes like class 1, class 2, class 3, or the biosafety levels. Okay, for example, for the production of the vaccines you need a you need a industrial unit which has to be very much highly sterile. Okay, and contamination free. So to make such units or such industrial plants, it adds to the cost, and maintenance of that is very costly. So that adds to the cost to the overall bioprocess. So then chemical process, we already talked, it requires a catalyst, and in this case a bioprocess, the live microbes or the enzymes that these microbes are producing, they are actually acting as a catalyst. Okay, then in the chemical processes it produces a limited variety of products. Okay, so means limited variety of products means it produces the different types of the products and there, but the variety is limited. But in the case of the bioprocess, some of the unique products like interferons, growth factors. So interferons are the chemicals, some chemicals which are required for treatment of the cancers, diseases. Okay, or also for the the vaccines, like you must have heard by now the term called steroids. So all those things can be produced. These are some of the unique things that cannot be actually produced by any chemical processes. Like for example, the production of the insulin. So insulin cannot be produced, that is required for the diabetic patients, right? So the insulin cannot be produced by any chemical process. It is being produced by the bioprocess. But like insulin is produced by the humans, it cannot be produced by any other any microorganisms or any animals. Okay, so what it was done that as I maybe have told you in the previous classes, that particular gene of the human was genetically engineered in one of the microorganisms, and then that microorganism started to produce the insulin. Okay, and then we are able to get that insulin and using as a medicine for the so many of diabetic patients who have high sugar levels. So some of the chemicals can actually only be produced by the bioprocess, and some of them are the interferons, the growth factors. Okay, some of the proteins and all those things. And if you see the chemical process, the overall process is highly toxic. It's a greater toxicity. Another thing is the non-biodegradability and the increased risks of the environment. So whatever the chemicals that are being produced or byproducts, they have a high toxicity and non-degradability, and they are not sustainable. So they are not much suitable to the environment, and you need to have some additional processes and techniques to, for example, to purify the byproducts that are supposed produced by that particular industries. Okay, but monitoring of that is something is not quite done in a better way. But in this case, bioprocess, there is also the safety concerns. Like as I told you, if the particular microorganism is lethal, then it is going to affect the environment. But comparatively, it is safe to the environment. Okay, and it is biodegradable. So whatever the product, suppose the ethanol, biochemical, a particular polymer or such, so whatever is being produced, they are generally biodegradable in nature, and they as a overall less toxicity to the environment. So this is a very basic differences between the two, and we looked into that what is the upstream and downstream processes. And in the next class, let us look into what is the primary and the secondary metabolites, like what are the products of the fermentations, and how, for example, the microbes undergo the growth to produce this type of biochemicals. So anyone, any questions or doubts until now? Anyone? So if not, so let us continue with the next topic on the tomorrow's class. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.